Welcome to our Holmes History Lecture Series. My name is Cliff McCain, and I am an online history instructor with Holmes Community College. I will be giving you a short lecture on the Tudor Dynasty of England for your Western Civilization 1 class. Please pay close attention to the information in this lecture. There will be a quiz at the end of this video. So how did this famous dynasty begin? During this time, there had been a power struggle for the throne of England between two distinctive families, the Yorks and the Lancasters. The roses here seen on the screen were the symbols for each of these families. The decisive battle of this power struggle took place at Bosworth Field, and the war was won by the Lancasters, led by Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor would become Henry VII. When Henry VII took the throne of England, he brought stability to the country. One of the ways that he ensured this stability is that he married Elizabeth York from his opposing forces in the Battle of the Roses. This really solidified his reign and gave him much power. When Henry VII died, his son became the King of England. He took the title of Henry VIII. In history, if one were to think of a King of England or many countries, this was probably the one that comes to the common person's mind. He really changed things in England, Europe, and the world. And there are going to be two distinct areas he is most known for. Many people have heard of Henry VIII, and probably the area that they've heard the most about were his wives. Henry VIII had 6 wives. They were in order: Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard, and Catherine Parr. Catherine of Aragon divorced the king. That's how their marriage ended. Anne Boleyn was executed. Jane Seymour died during childbirth of Henry's only son. Anne of Cleves and Henry were divorced. Catherine Howard was executed, and finally Catherine Parr survived him and became his widow. Possibly the area that Henry most changed the world was in the area of religion. His first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and he did not have a great marriage, and he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. He asked for permission to do this from the Pope in the Catholic Church, and he was denied. This enraged Henry. What he decided to do was to break away the Church of England from the Catholic Church and put himself as the head of the Church of England. So this really started the Protestant faith. It didn't start the faith, but it created a schism that lasts probably still today. Many people followed Henry in the Church of England. Some wanted to remain with the Catholic Church. So this was a problem for hundreds of years, and it was an issue that his children would have to deal with too. The King or Queen of England, whoever that may be at the time, is still the head of the Church of England. When Henry VIII died, his third child, Edward, became the King of England. Edward was only 9 years old, and his influence is mainly that during his time the Protestant growth in the country just continued. A lot of the people that were influencing him at a young age and had a lot of the power really pushed a Protestant legacy during this time. Edward only lived till the age of 15, so he only reigned for 6 years. But during that time, Protestant growth really took off in England. When Edward died at the age of 15, there was some indecision about who was supposed to take over as the next monarch. By most people's accounts, his oldest sister Mary should be the next queen, but Edward had named Lady Jane Grey as his heir in his will. And in 1553, she claimed the crown, but it only lasted for 9 days. She was overthrown and was executed at the age of 16. When Edward died, and then Lady Jane Grey was arrested, his oldest sister Mary became the new Queen of England. She began her reign in 1553. Mary's main goal as a monarch and her life's work really was to push the Catholic faith. Henry VIII had broken away from the Catholic Church. During Edward's reign, they had continued to push Protestant ideals, but Mary was a Catholic, very devout, and wanted to England to revert back to Catholicism. Her nickname in history is Bloody Mary, as you can see from the picture here, and that comes from the fact that she would use violence when necessary to get what she wanted, especially if it was in the name of the Catholic Church. Mary I only reigned for 5 years herself, and then she died in 1558. The youngest child of Henry VIII, Elizabeth, became the queen. She was the child of Henry and Anne Boleyn. She really expanded the empire. She made England a very, very strong country throughout the world. Possibly the peak of their power came during Elizabeth's reign. There was not a lot of internal infighting in the country. One thing that she tried to do was she tried to kind of play it down the middle religiously. She may have had her own ideas about religion, but she tried to keep it separate. Henry and Edward's reigns had been on the side of Protestants. Her sister Mary had really pushed Catholicism. So she tried to stay away from that and tried to keep things from getting out of hand. She reigned for many years and never married. She never had an heir to take over when she passed. Since Elizabeth had no heir, James Stuart of Scotland claimed the throne when she died in 1603. He had a right to the throne and entitlement through his connection with the Tudors. He was a distant relative of the Tudors, and he became both the King of Scotland and the King of England. He became James I of England while retaining his title in Scotland of James VI. I hope you've enjoyed this little talk about the Tudor Dynasty. There are numerous books, television series, movies about this time in history. If you're interested in that, there is plenty of material to kind of pique your interest and to get you a little more in depth in this short video. I hope you've enjoyed it.